I grew up in a small town in northwest Minnesota, and I grew up as part of an Indigenous family in a largely farming community. And by being part of that small town, looking back, I noticed a lot of benefits from that small town and how that impacted me as an individual and more importantly as a young man. It provided me the view of the world or the paradigm that I had at an early age, but it also provided me some of the structure or the cornerstones to who I was as a young man. Everything from political beliefs to my religious beliefs, and even how to say treat a family member or a significant other was very much defined by that small town as well as my family. And I think that's a good or a bad thing, depending on, I guess, how you're raised. But the reality for me is once I went away to college, a lot of those pillars that really, looking back, defined who I was, and most importantly, defined my view of the world, were really challenged in a good way when I went to college. And the educational experience really gave me the opportunity to ultimately refine my view of the world, and more importantly, refine who I am as an individual. And I don't think it always has to be formalized education. I believe that a person can achieve that type of education or that type of life-changing opportunity and experience simply by traveling or educating oneself for the world, getting out of our own small town, if you will. And not even that you have to move away for years, but more importantly, just giving yourself the opportunity to experience other aspects, other corners of the world. One day I was eating dinner with my folks. They had brought me out to my favorite restaurant, and I was telling my dad about an award I had achieved at the college. And my dad nodded his head. He's a full-blood Lakota man. Nodded his head in approval, but then went on to the next topic. And at that point, I was feeling a little sensitive about it. I'm not sure if I was expecting a high five or a chest bump or whatnot, but I really was maybe expecting a little bit more. So I verbalized that to my dad that I was a little frustrated and asked him actually, do you understand what I just said? Do you understand what I just achieved? He got quiet in the restaurant for a bit, and then he shared with me that he's really proud of me and of what I had accomplished at that point. But he pointed out that he had never went to college. He had gone to a 2-year, but he hadn't gone to a university. And he couldn't quite understand and truly comprehend the importance of that achievement. But he wanted me to know that whatever those achievements are, that he's behind me 100%, and that he loves me, and that he's very supportive and proud of us. But I began to understand at that point, the moment that you step away from that small town or from your family to seek that education, we all have to give up a piece of ourselves to achieve that. As an American Indian male, I would say every time that I walked onto a college campus, there was a piece of me that I kind of had to set aside and become a student from the more Western experience, to be able to nod my head yes in a class to show the teacher that I'm understanding or that I'm there with them. When I came home from my first semester of college, I basically backed into college. I got in on probation, and it was really important for me to get a C. And by the time I came home for a Christmas break, my friends got together at one of their homes, and I was fortunate enough to have people around me that were quite smart and bright, and college wasn't a difficult thing for them. For me, it was. But when we got together, it came to that time of the night where they wanted us to share grades. And I wasn't looking forward to that. And when it came time for me to share my grade point average, which was a 2.0, a C, I couldn't have been more proud. But some of my friends took that opportunity to rib me, to tease me and say, way to go, Chuck, way to strive for mediocrity. And never did I want to punch somebody as much as I did then, because it was something that was very difficult and important to me, and actually quite the success, and I felt that they kind of made light of that. So went home that night, brought to earth a bit over what I seen as an achievement and a success. I was able to live on as a student and go to college that next semester. By the time I got home to my parents' place, my folks were already in bed, and I went to raid the refrigerator pretty late in the night, and my mother must have known that was going to be my step, because taped to the door handle of the refrigerator was my grades with a note saying, "Charlie, we're so proud of you. We knew you could do it. We love you, and we support you 100% for you being in college." And that little piece of support meant so much to me as a young man, but also as an American Indian male trying to be successful in a college environment that is really Western by design. As I move forward into my professional career, I found it really important that I support students or support people like my family supported me in the journey of education or academia. One of the things that I had when I was in college is I had a bunch of piranha, the toothed, somewhat aggressive fish from the Amazon, and I had 3 of those in a fish bowl. And for the 7 years of my undergrad and graduate work, I would carry these fish around with me from apartment to apartment. Whenever I'd move them, I always had to make sure that the place that I was moving to, that I started threw water together and got their tank together, their new home ahead of time. For example, when I was a boy, my parents would buy me a goldfish, and I always tugged at my mom's skirt to get a goldfish, and they'd allow me to bring it home. And a day later, I'd be in tears on the living room floor because my favorite new goldfish had died overnight. And only after I went to college did I realize the reason for that was there was a lot of things in that fish tank that we just weren't preparing. We'd basically bring that fish home from the store, throw it in a gallon of tap water, and expect the fish to survive. But when I went away to college and purchased what I thought was expensive fish in the piranha, I realized I didn't want them to die the next day. So I learned that there's a lot of things to pay attention to when you're creating a fish tank or a fish bowl. So when I would move my fish from apartment to apartment, I had to make sure that I had a fish tank that was ready for the fish. So when you move them from one tank to another, that the fish were going to be successful, that they were going to have a safe spot and a place where they could thrive. And what I do professionally at the college in which I work is I feel I do that with all the students that we work with or that we serve, is we're there to help make sure that they have a tank, maybe an academic tank, if you will, that is well suited for them, one that's going to be an environment where they can succeed and thrive.